Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unscripted and Unchoreographed. I'm your host, Neve, and today I am very excited to have the one and only Ben Sullivan, an incredible choreographer, dancer, actor, creator, a man of many talents. So we'll jump straight into it. How did you get started in the arts?
I guess my mom is a primary school teacher, so it was always very important to her. Yeah, well, she's primary principal now, but it was always very important to her that we had art in our life. So we did like a lot of painting and things like that, and like that was always a big part of my growing up. But I guess it was more in like formal fine art. I started in fine art when I was very young. I was a fine artist, which a lot of people don't know about me, that I had a big fine art background. So there was a lot of that when I was growing up, and then I played a lot of sport, but I kind of bounced around a lot of things. When I was about 10 or 11, my mum went to do a course, teacher training course, and met a man there by the name of Kieran Gray, who was also a teacher in a Educate Together school, and had just started this group about 2 years ago called Company B, which was based on a thesis that he did for the Masters of Dance in UL, which was about boys and dance. So he was doing this workshop with my mum about teaching children through dance, all these kind of tasks and tools, and how to bring numbers into it and vocabulary and all these things. So at that time, I had kind of been bouncing around a lot of team sports, and my mum suggested for me to go to Dance House that coming Saturday and give it a try. And I went and I did it, and I just kind of fell in love with it then. So I would have been about 10 or 11, I think, when I started there. And yeah, I guess it kind of came then later that I had to pick between tennis and dance. I was playing a lot of tennis, and I picked dance sort of more and more. I guess slowly started getting centered a bit more in my life. And through Company B, I guess because it was such an odd resource as well for the dance sector to have at the time, like a big group of young boys. I was lucky to work with a couple of Irish choreographers. So I think the first thing we did was with Lieve O'Donoghue. She asked if I wanted to do a show with her. God, I must remember, I was chatting to someone about it recently, but I can't quite remember the name of the show. And it was like a rotating cast member every night. So I played it for one of the nights, and then it was like an older woman one of the nights, and it kind of changed every night. So that was like the first gig that I did, and I was maybe 12, something like that, 12 or 13 maybe, around then. And that was great crack. And I think from there, that really started to like get maybe a bit of a hunger for that kind of stuff. I really valued, I think, the respect that was in the room as a child, because I didn't have a lot of that in school or in sport or stuff. There's a lot of respect within dance, a lot of care and attention put on how you talk to people and how you create a good space for working and things. So yeah, I did that. I was lucky to work with Junk. Junk also did another show with one of the guys there called 100 Ways to Drown, with Joshua Dyson, who was in the company at the time. And I guess that's the foundation of it. And then when I got to the end of leaving, the thought of like sitting in a classroom again for another 4 years with someone at the top of the room telling me how the world works just didn't really click with me. So it was kind of a last minute decision that I decided to do dance as a job, or really like consider it that I could really do it as a job. So yeah, I mean, up until that point, it had all just been kind of very creative and very free. After that, I took some time to get a bit of ballet with INYB. They started a boys outreach program, so I was in with like a bunch of like 13, 14-year-old boys, and there was me who was like 18 or 19 or something doing ballet for the first time, and they were like running rings around me. That was really, really useful, and they're still running that program. It's great. It's a great program. Yeah, and then I did a little bit with Mariam and stuff. in DYDC, did a year in Inchocore, and then went off to Fonties. So that's that's the rundown of things, I guess, thus far in terms of my getting into dance.
Did you realize how big these companies were, or no?
No, not really. I guess I was really impressed, though, I will say, when I met these people. I was always like so impressed by their like breadth of like knowledge, and like their working practice and stuff always like really fascinated me. And I felt like very like, I always remember feeling really grateful to be like led into the fold of this kind of world that maybe wasn't quite meant for me, or that I never felt was quite meant for me when I was younger. I was kind of led into this community, or this like art practice of stuff, particularly with like Junk, because I worked with them for like over 2 years, and I really got to like know them and do warm-ups with them and see how they work and things. And I felt really a part of like something like that was, I guess, missing maybe when I was a bit younger. So I guess I didn't realize maybe the height or like breadth of their reach in terms of art and stuff, but I definitely did feel in awe, less of their like fame, shall we say, and more so in awe of like their dedication to the field of like dance and to their working practice and stuff. And even still, I'm really impressed by the way they work and continue to work.
And is Company B still a thing? 'Cause
No.
that is amazing.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It finished sometime around, I want to say 2018, 2019 maybe, to my knowledge. There's one of the guys there, Michael, second name is escaping me now, but Michael tried to keep it going for a little while, but it's a lot to ask of someone to like run something like that. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to get experience in that kind of role. Like any of those kind of creative administration, I guess, roles are very hard to get experience in, because you work creatively, but you might not have that, I guess, managerial knowledge to be able to like operate something at like a highly creative, but also, I guess, structured way. A lot of creatives maybe struggle with that like structure and stuff. But it's also a lot to ask of like a young person with not a huge like amount of knowledge of what goes into it. And it's a lot to ask as well to give up your Saturdays, especially when you're working with like young people. Every Saturday of your life gone, basically, until you decide to finish. It really like ties you down to a place. Things like that, it demands quite a lot of dedication.
Was it contemporary dance you were doing in Company B, and when you started it in Dance House?
Yeah, it was contemporary, true and true. I actually saw Kieran recently, and I was chatting to him. He was doing jazz dance for most of his life, and then had met Mags Byrne from Do You Dance? I hope I'm getting that right now. But Mags Byrne, who runs the youth dance up here in Belfast, and she was doing contemporary, and he was like, that looks great. I had started in contemporary. So by the time the company then was formed, it was like a contemporary company, but it was really based around like the interests of like, I guess, boys. So there's a lot to do with cars and like cowboys and coolness and I guess these kind of factors, but it was never like very macho. It was like quite exploratory, and like really used, I guess, those like boy interests, to really invert it. But it really used those interests as a jumping off point into more creative and expressionistic movement, I guess, is really the thing. But yeah, it was very creative, and like the foundation of it was like generative, less so than kind of a lyrical approach to like learning lyrical choreography and performing lyrical choreography. It was very like self-motivated for us, of like working in groups, being on our set. One of the ones that always sticks out to me was we were given all these like car logos on a sheet of paper, and we all picked out a car logo, and then we had to make this sequence based around the shape of the logo and stuff. So it's like so simple, but like, yeah, it did a lot for me in, I guess, in terms of like thinking creatively about dance rather than like technical.
That's so cool. And so accessible as well, I think, especially for young boys. So then, when you were in Leaving Cert, getting ready to decide what you were going to do in college before dance, did you have anything else that you're like?
Yeah, well, it's actually huge. I was hugely into the sciences and stuff. Yeah, I was I was really into biology and chemistry. And actually, my plan was to go into mammal preparatory was the job I was like really, really interested in, which is a job I'm not actually sure we have in Ireland, but big galleries that have taxidermy sections, a lot of them employ someone called a mammal preparator, which is essentially like a surgeon for like animal corpses, because a lot of the time taxidermists don't have like a big in actually like breaking down an animal, but they have more of a background in like the creative reproducing of how an animal lived. But I was really into it. There was a like amazing YouTube channel for a natural history museum in the States, and I used to be obsessed with watching the woman who did animal preparatory, because she would like get these like specimens and stuff that she'd have to log, and they were like really strange specimens and really interesting. And I guess maybe to that I got really fascinated in it, so I was really into like biology, and the plan was to do something in like biochem, and then maybe then later looking to go to the States to do something in mammal preparatory or taxidermy. It was very much out of like the passion for like, I guess, natural form or something. I was really close to doing chemistry in Trinity. I had gotten in through there. I ended up just about scraping through to that course, and I was very, very close to doing it. But I was like, I need 1 year. That's what I told my parents. I was like, I need 1 year. Give me 1 year to just try it and do it. And then I asked them for another year. I asked them for another year, and asked them for another year, and asked them for college, and came back from college, and I said, give me a year to work as a dancer and to do it. And another year and another year, and now finally I don't need to ask them for a year, which is nice. I'm not asking my parents for another year to let it work out and let me try it, so it's good. I think I've been very, very lucky to be surrounded by people that are just more talented and more expressionistic, or what have you, in my life. And I was lucky to encounter those people when I was young as well, and I'm lucky to get to work alongside people like that. And it makes you want to do, or it makes me anyway want to do better and better. I definitely have like a jealous streak in me as well, of like seeing how well people are doing, and I really want to like, I get that like jealous sense of like, oh, that should be me, I should be doing that. And then I guess it helps me to like look at those people and go, I want to be that. I don't want what they have. I want to be more like them, and I want to aspire to be as good as the people I'm surrounded by, I guess, is really, really the thing. I guess, yeah. Yeah, well, constantly aspiring as well, I don't ever, I guess my biggest fear is that I'd ever feel like there's no one, I guess if I ever had the feeling that I was the best person around me and I was surrounded by lesser people, I think I'd be doing something really wrong with my life if that was ever the feeling that came over me. So I'm glad to be surrounded by people that I want to aspire to.
This is the thing, like I think it comes up for a lot of people, this sense of like ego in the arts, and like, can you actually like take it away from it? And like, if you're in the arts, are you all like, at some point, are you just going to suffer from burnout? I don't know the answer. And there's lots of things like, if there was funding, if there was this or that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on ego, I guess the thing is, definitely it comes and goes, right? I definitely feel sometimes a bit like egomaniacal maybe, but I guess the more and more I do it and stuff as well, I kind of feel like it's less and less about me, and it's more and more about the people that are around me. I think is really the thing that got me into wanting to do this, is like, it always just seems to come back to like being around people that I really enjoy being around and that I look up to, so it leaves less and less space, I guess, for me to want to be an egotist or something, or leaves less space for the egotist in me maybe to breathe, which is something, maybe something good, something bad, don't know. I guess it's that's the thing. And the more I work and get what I want, the more I also like want to give to other people that I think are deserving, and like to push other people's names forward for opportunities. And the more I want to give the gifts that I've been given to other people, a lot of people have been very, very good to me, and I want to be good to people because of that. I guess that's really the thing about the arts for me. Yeah, that I guess helps quell that egotism, because it's there. If I could be Sylvie Guillaume, I would, but I'm not, so that's good. The breadth of dance work that we have here is like just kind of limited, like just with the size of the island and the amount of people dancing. But it does kind of drive people towards like niche and stuff like that as well. So a lot of makers or dance makers find these interesting pockets of like study. Yeah, and they invite dancers into those places to make with them or collaborate with them. And obviously there's been a big move towards more dance as well, especially in theatre and things like that. And, I mean, we have a history of it. With Beckett, was working on strange sort of choreographed movement pieces and things like this, and it gets very blurry with Not I, which is like one of my favorite, I think, works of theater, and it's very hard to argue that it's not a dance of the mouth because it's very choreographed. So like there is this, I think, ingrained in also the history of theater and stuff, a strange approach to movement within theater that I guess it asks of a dancer in contemporary Ireland to be even stranger, because the breadth of work is obviously much more increased than it was with Beckett, and even then it was still, there was a lot to ask for in I guess different areas of his work. So yeah, and I mean, like, then there's also the thing of like DCC and stuff, and Paddy's Day, and the dance that's, I guess, a little more commercially driven than it is solely artistically driven. And there's a lot of joy in that stuff too, of like doing dances for kids on the street, for street festivals, or for Patrick's Day. I mean, it's an integral part, at least for me, working in Ireland, that kind of commercial element or council driven element I quite enjoy. It kind of reminds me of the whole like joy of dance as well. It isn't just about being like a big artist and making big artistic sort of swipes of your paintbrush, that there's also a very humbling thing, maybe that's back to the ego, but there's a very humbling thing to dance for the council for Halloween, or for something else, to do MJ's Thriller for people on the street. Like, it's cool, and it's cool to get to do work like that. That's great crack. I love the LDCC gigs, and then obviously I do cabaret stuff as well. And when I first went into that, I was like, oh, this is like just another job. It's another like DCC thing. And then I fell in love with cabaret and like performing for like punters rather than theater goers. And there's also something really artistically interesting and valid about like performing for a bunch of drunk people and like trying to make the loudest, bombastic, like funniest work you can make, while still keeping a sense of like personal intrigue and like artistic integrity, when you're making work that's solely for like the entertainment of a festival going crowd or something like that. That I absolutely like adore cabaret work, and some of the best and most creative people I have met have been in cabaret work, because they're really ingrained in performativity and making work for audiences. So their artistry is like really well crafted and refined in order to like, I guess, transmit their ideas in a really entertaining fashion.
How did you get into cabaret, Ben?
It was what I said. It was a gift given to me by a friend. Like, it was Alicia Mullen, phenomenal dancer, circus performer, clown, who I had met in college. She had graduated a year or two, I think, ahead of me or something like that. But I'd met her in college at a party, and the two of us just had gotten on like a house on fire and kept in touch. And then she had been working for Dee Griffin and Keen Kinsella for Ping Pong, and gave me a buzz and was like, hey, we're a person short for an electric picnic gig. Do you want to like come along and I'll explain what we're doing as we go, I was like, yeah, sure. So did that as the first gig, and that was like very loose. That was just kind of go-go dancing stuff. And then that all went well, and then started to do more choreographed stuff with Ping Pong, and then started to come in for build-up and stuff. yeah, I guess and even still I'm getting kind of more and more involved in that kind of cabaret family a little bit, and working on my own act and stuff for that. Yeah, so it was a gift given by a friend, you know. She said, do you want to give this a try?" And I said yes, and now I'm, you know, I'm inviting people into it as well. If there's someone that I think is like have a really good knack for it or something, I can ask for them, or if someone's interested in doing it, I can always put them forward. And it's a nice, yeah, you know, passed down. I got it passed down.
How would someone get into cabaret?
Under the umbrella of cabaret, like there's a huge amount of stuff that can go in there, like a juggler, someone that just has a knack for being funny can get up on stage and do an act and really hold an audience, you know. So it's very eclectic. At least my belief of what cabaret is a big eclectic mix of different practices and disciplines and things like that. So I would say there's plenty of people running stuff. There's more, if you're into like more sexy, there's loads of burlesque, and there's some amazing burlesque performers. If you're into burlesque and that side of things, there's plenty of people to get in touch with. If you're into comedy, there's like Cabaret. If you're into festival circuits, the ping pong stuff is great, but there's plenty of people that if you have an idea of what really intrigues you about, I guess, being in a variety show, if you're like, I want to do something funny, I want to do something sexy, I want to do something scary, I would say reach out. I would say have a look around and reach out. And if you don't have something ready yet, ask how you can help, ask if they need someone to volunteer, you know, those kind of things. Like, people are delighted to have people on board and take interest. So if that's something that someone is interested in, I would say just put the feelers out, and people will be more than happy normally to meet you where you're at on the whole thing.
Is it mostly like festival stuff, or is there any cabaret clubs in Dublin?
Cabaret clubs, I mean, cabaret run nights pretty frequently. I would say as well, if you like cabaret, there's a lot of good improv comedy coming up now as well. I'm trying to think now. The Broad Strokes are great. They do improv comedy. They're an all women, or Flinta, I guess, Flinta, non-binary, all that jazz group that do sort of improvised comedy around a theme or an idea and stuff, and their stuff is great. So like there's plenty of opportunity if you're looking for variety to like get in touch with people.
Can I jump slightly back, Ben, in terms of just like when you decided to go to Inchocore and Fonties?
So you learn to do like kids from like 3 up until I think 17 or 18. You do ballet grades, you do the jazz grades, and you can come out with the certification to teach all that. But for me, it was great to do that because I understood, I guess, the thorough line all the way through. I did find it very mundane at times, and you know, I guess that's the thing. Like, people think that like your dance education is going to be like super dynamic and like really fulfilling all the time, and that you're like going to be getting this constant input. But it does require a lot of interest, you know. So if it's something you're testing out, something like a year program. But yeah, and in terms of me, it was great the year there. I got super bored and dropped out. And then Fonties was kind of the same. I was kind of expecting Fonties to be like that thing of like, oh, it's going to be like super engaging and all this. And it was. I got loads from it. I fell in love with like dance notation and dance analysis, which had never really been my thing. I fell in love with like really the academic side of dance a lot. And I got to do ballet and Graham and Pilates, which I would recommend to anyone.
You have your training and you have like a breadth of work. And this is kind of like related to the question in terms of if there's somebody who like that just cannot afford to let's say move to Holland or go to like maybe dance classes. And I know maybe there was some opportunities that aren't here now, but what advice would you give maybe?
Dancers are some of the kindest and most open people I have met, and I believe that's why I've ended up where I'm at. The real dancers are much more passionate than the dance and than anything else around it. And I think if there's a financial barrier to entry, I would say again, the same advice. I would say get in touch with places if there's a class that interests you, or a place like Dance Ireland that runs multiple classes and you want to take something. I think they would be absolutely delighted to hear that there's someone that maybe can't get their foot in the door, but that would be really interested in pursuing just dance classes. You know, you don't have to pursue being a dancer or making dance your living. But I think if there was someone that was interested in taking more class and said there's barriers for me to get in there, they would be delighted to try to work things out. And like there's people as well, there's choreographers and things like that like Emma Martin or Catherine Young, or even John Scott as well, that have worked with people that aren't dancers. It's one of the nice things about the island here is that people really want to share dance. And there was a guy in college that I had a teacher that was working with kids in like low income areas, working class areas, and he was doing dance with them in a school hall, and most of it was like kicking a football around, and he brought in these like guys that were like football trickers, street performers that do football tricks and stuff, and was teaching football tricks to them and things like that. And you know, he's like a big wig choreographer and stuff, but like there's ample opportunity. And then there were people that were interested in college. They were like, I want to help out. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So look, a couple of people, like 3 or 4 of the people used to like come in and help him, you know, with the kids and stuff. Like there's opportunity everywhere. Not, I mean, for dance particularly, because of how passionate I think the people are that dance, they are very happy to bring more people into it, and I guess share that joy, which is always the big thing, you know. Yeah, maybe is a bit trickier with acting and things like that, but I know there's the Dublin Youth Theatre and stuff like that. I know offer people opportunities and stuff like that maybe don't have that financial support that a lot of young people who get into arts have, because that's the big I guess barrier always, is who is the opportunity afforded to get into these fields and to get to enjoy art. It's one of the most shameful things about the modern world, is that there's a barrier to enjoy art. But the barrier is definitely a sort of a glass fence of a kind, that if people are interested, the best thing to do is to ask for the opportunity, and 90% of the time I think people would be delighted to involve someone that shouldn't be allowed in that space, or hasn't gotten that opportunity, or is told that it's not their place to aspire to something. It's one of those things, like I guess it's been a lot of what we've been talking about, but I've been very lucky about the people that have looked after me and that have brought me into this field, but also just into getting to enjoy art. I don't think it would have ever had been meant for me, this kind of work, and it was never, I don't think, an opportunity that should have been afforded to me in a normal kind of world, despite like, you know, being middle class and like, you know, not really having to worry about those kind of things. Even still, I guess being a boy, that opportunity just isn't really there for a lot of boys. It goes doubly fold for people with less than myself, or less financial, I guess, support, or those kind of things. And it's just something I'm very passionate about, is that question of who is allowed to do these things, who is supposed to be in these rooms and at these meetings, you know, and talking about these things. Yeah, you know, the voice, who's the voice that isn't in the room.
I was just going to ask, in terms of now being in Belfast, have you noticed, what is kind of the dance scene like in the north? Like, we've had different people on from the north who actually are, you know, they're dancers, but I suppose, what's your experience been so far? And I know you haven't been there that long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a pretty wonderful experience up here so far. I'm very lucky to work with Michael McAvoy on a short like showing for something for next year and stuff. Chatting to Michael is like really, really passionate about dance, and like dance as a career and stuff as well, and is making a career up here, not just in like contemporary dance, but in like musicals and in teaching with acting students and stuff. So like it's definitely like a real thing up here in a way that I don't think people maybe realize. And there's obviously Maiden Voyage is there's the big company and stuff. But yeah, I'm doing some bits with Eileen McClory from OTR with like kids with additional needs and stuff, of like getting some expression, which is like also fucking great, because like I wish I had like a couple of like mad dancers coming in taking an interest in me after school when I was in school. I'm like so lucky that I had that extracurricular kind of thing, but it's so great to see people offering other avenues of expression, especially to kids that maybe struggle with their expression, to be like, you're not crazy and you're not a problem. Like, there are other modes of expression and you don't need to use this one, but we're going to show you this one and it might benefit you, it might not. It's such a wonderful thing. So I guess that's on the minute details of, I guess, what I'm up to up here. But I guess for me as well, I'm kind of interested in arts in general and how my understanding of myself as a dancer fits into like the greater context of what I'm around and stuff. And the art scene in Belfast is phenomenal. Like, it's, as everyone keeps telling me, I haven't really gotten into that funding kind of cycle stuff up here and understanding that as much, but everyone tells me the pots are small, and you know, it's a bit harder and stuff, but it's really driven, or at least it seems to me, it's really driven people together, that people really look out for each other and collaborate with each other and do things on a dime. And I've been like doorstepping a lot of institutions and things about work that I'm interested in doing with them and things, and everyone has been super open and kind of accepting and like allowing of me coming in and expressing interest in a way that I don't think as many institutions in Dublin particularly are like that invested in. Like, there's, you know, like, yeah, it can be like scary sometimes to doorstep an institution. It feels like maybe that's like, it's a bit aiming too high and stuff, but like Dance Ireland have been like so good to me, especially as of recent with like the residency and stuff, and actually just like being able to chat about like getting work in front of people and talking to people. Like, networking is like a big kind of spot for me, I guess, a sore spot or something. But yeah, like, I mean, I've developed some really lovely relationships with some institutions and stuff up here, and I guess there's a little more cowboy, it's a little more Wild West up here, I guess I can say, to try to summarize things without going into too much detail on how everything works, you know. But it's a bit more Wild West, and it's fucking cool, you know. Like, people do some like cool weird shit up here, and act like total cowboys, and it's great. But yeah, Belfast Exposed is this like phenomenal photography archive based in Belfast, that do exhibitions around their archive or external work. And the most recent one they had on was phenomenal. It was about like the archive of a performance artist who was based up here in Belfast, that I need to get a bit more info on and stuff. Um, yeah, I was in chatting to Deirdre just about like putting on something that I had been working on, and she was just totally on board with it. And like, there's so many of these little spaces around Belfast. Yeah, I guess, sorry, that's where I was going. But I had this conversation with Deirdre anyway, and she was kind of talking about the troubles and things like this, and that there was kind of a spirit at that time that like really you could do whatever you want and no one was really thinking about what you were doing. There was much bigger worries, and it does seem like that spirit has carried over into now. And obviously nothing is really fixed or anything, but it's like that spirit, I think, really remains here with people. There's like something kind of indomitable, the indomitable will of the people here. Yeah, to like make weird shit and to not really care what you think about it, or what people think of you. Yeah.
What is your kind of choreographic, like, creator work right now? Is it kind of a thing that you're focusing on more, or is it balanced with dancing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of working that out at the moment. I've had like a lot of input up until this point in my life, and I guess I'm trying to like sift through it now and work out what I'm really interested in. And I'm trying to work out if I have to like narrow things down if that's like a good thing. Is that like what good artists do? They like kind of pick one thing and they get really good at it. But I'm not really sure if that's like my vibe. I think, yeah. I mean, I guess I can say I'm really obsessed with like sort of normal things, like everyday people. I'm walking down the street and like picking stuff off the shelves at like supermarkets, and just these like little things that like go unnoticed and that are like really inconsequential. There's like something very important about that kind of stuff to me, about like how we like operate as like, you know, flesh machines, you know, that I I'm kind of more and more interested in. I really enjoy like the normality of dance sometimes, you know, away from the beauty of dance and into like kind of putting hands in pockets and things like that. So that's really where my mind is at the moment, and I'm working on, I guess, like it's kind of a developing thesis about like preservation of movement and stuff. That I would say is pretty heavily inspired by Katja Heitman over in the Netherlands. But I guess trying to like reinterpret and understand what it means to like save and preserve movement and action and people. How do we protect that thing as something that moves forward? So I guess that's where I'm at. I guess artistically, as a dancer, I'm kind of not sure where I'm going with things. You know, I'm training more and doing more like techniquey stuff, but I think artistically I'm going more normal.
If you had a magic wand, Ben, and you could change the world of the arts, or like, I don't know, bring back Company B or something like this, what would it,
Yeah, Company B was great, but I have a feeling I don't need to wave a magic wand for that. I think maybe a couple of years down the road, you know. I've been chatting to some people about it as well, working with youth and stuff. So we'll see. We're probably a while away yet, but you know, thinking about that stuff. But I have to say I love late night arts that they do here in Belfast, which is the first Thursday of every month. They do like basically a mini culture night. And culture night is literally my favorite night of the year. It is so much fun. It's like it can literally be what you want it to be. You can like go to galleries and get like piss wine drunk and like go with your friends and like crack wise about like someone's painting and be like, oh, the composition is terrible, but I love the perspective, a real master perspective, you know, and you're like on your fourth glass of like, you know, petrol station wine, like. But you can do that, or you can like really, you can go to workshops and, you know, like really like get artsy with it and like have a really nice wholesome time. And I love that about culture night, and I love that it's this like big nationwide thing where like people really try in every pocket of Ireland to do something for everyone. There's, you know, it's no entry fee, and it's really everyone is allowed to go to these places and do the art thing. But they do that here on like a smaller scale on at the first Thursday of every month, you know, a couple of galleries, and it's the same old heads, you know, but there's some stuff that pops up and things. But they stay open till 8 o'clock. Some stay open till 9, like PS Squared. It's great. You can just like bop around the city, and especially because Belfast is so walkable, you can like see 3 galleries in like an hour and a half, which is what I did just Thursday gone. And I would love to see that in Dublin, especially. Like, I think Dublin has kind of a very tight feeling when it comes to like getting in and seeing stuff, especially if you're working a 9 to 5. You're like, how the hell are you supposed to get in? Like, you know, and you know, into a gallery or museum, they're closed at like 5:30 or 6. Like, it's not feasible. So something like putting it on a Thursday evening where you're done work, and it's not a Friday where you're like competing with, you know, nightlife and stuff. Yeah, and just like throwing out some workshops and throwing out a night where you can like walk around the city with your friends and meander a bit and stumble upon stuff and meet people, I guess, that are, you know, also there on that wicked journey across the city. That would be my thing. I've been loving late night art up here. I'd love to see late night art everywhere.
That is so good, Ben, because you are absolutely right. I think it would really benefit Dublin. Thank you so much, Ben.